Okay, so let's talk about one of the strangest, most unsettling places on our own planet. A place that completely messes with the most basic rhythm of our lives.
Just picture this for a second. It's the middle of the night. You look out your window, and the sun is just hanging there in the sky, casting these long, eerie shadows when the world is supposed to be asleep.
And I'm not just talking about a long summer evening. I mean for weeks, sometimes even months on end. The sun just circles the horizon, like this constant, unblinking eye that refuses to go away.
That whole idea of nighttime, the world getting quiet, the stars coming out, it's just gone. It simply doesn't exist here.
It's a constant 24/7 exposure to the sun. It sounds like something from another planet, right? But nope, this happens right here on Earth.
So what is going on here? And maybe more importantly, what does living in a world with no night actually do to a person?
Well, the scientific answer is actually pretty cool. It's got nothing to do with magic or some big mystery. It all comes down to the simple fact that we live on a tilted planet.
The official name for this whole thing is the midnight sun. And like it says here, it happens in the extreme polar regions during their summer months. We're talking about places like northern Norway, parts of Alaska, and Antarctica.
So here's how it works. Our planet isn't sitting straight up and down. It's tilted on its axis by about 23.5 degrees. As we orbit the sun, that tilt means for part of the year, one of the poles is aimed directly at the sun, getting nonstop sunlight. 6 months later, it flips.
So yeah, the why is pretty straightforward. But knowing the science behind it does absolutely nothing to prepare your body and your mind for what it's actually like to experience it. And that's where things start to get genuinely weird.
So let's get into the human side of it. What happens to us when the main cue for our body's internal clock, darkness, is completely taken away?
This really sums up the problem. You have an internal body clock, your circadian rhythm, that releases the sleep hormone melatonin when it gets dark. But if it never gets dark, that system gets thrown into total chaos. Sleep becomes a huge struggle, and that leads to this whole cascade of other problems. You feel confused, you're deeply tired but can't sleep, and you've got this constant low-level anxiety.
But if you think constant light is bad, what do you think happens when the planet's tilt swings the other way? Because for every day of endless summer sun, there's an equal and opposite time of endless winter darkness.
This comparison is fascinating. The real problem isn't just too much light or too much darkness, it's the absence of the cycle. While endless light brings on anxiety and insomnia, the polar night, weeks of total darkness, is linked to severe depression, overwhelming fatigue, and a really scary loss of the concept of time itself.
All of this points to something really fundamental about our own biology, and it raises a huge question. What are we really designed for? This quote just nails it, doesn't it? We're not just creatures who use light. We are creatures that are tuned, right down to our genes, to the rhythm of light and dark. That cycle is just as essential to our well-being as air or water. And that kind of brings us back to the mystery of it all. Because even with everything we know, researchers studying people in polar research stations and on submarines are still just scratching the surface of how these environments really change our psychology over a lifetime. We definitely don't have the full story yet.
So this brings us to one last, more personal question, and I want you to ask yourself honestly.
With blackout curtains, with a super strict schedule, with just sheer force of will, do you think you could master this kind of environment and find a new normal?
Or do you think that relentless, never-setting sun would slowly start to chip away at you? Would you find your sleep, your mood, and maybe even your grip on reality starting to fray at the edges?
It's a haunting thought to end on. We can understand the science, we can measure the effects, but perhaps the deepest truth is that some parts of our own world just operate on a rhythm so alien that they will forever be hostile to the very biology that makes us human.